Hello, I'm Bret Moss, and you're watching the defining moment for creating the culture of conscience. Our guest today is Shawn McCarthy. Shawn is a senior at the University of California, Los Angeles, where he's majoring in psychobiology. He's a native Californian. Shawn McCarthy, welcome to the defining moment. Thanks for being our guest today.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Our topic today is the freedom to be your true self. And I want to ask you to get us started by sharing a defining moment from your own life where you discovered freedom to be your true self.
One thing that comes to mind for me is towards the end of high school, actually. Up until the end of my high school year, I was kind of this kind of a nerd, I guess you could say. I like to spend my time, playing computer games and reading like Star Wars books and fantasy novels and all these kinds of things. But yeah, towards the end of my high school career, I kind of went through a transformation where I realized that it's not just books that are fun to read and games that are fun to play, but actually people are fun to talk to as well. And what happened was there was a combination of different factors that helped to contribute to that. One thing was during my 10th grade year, I became friends with a group of guys who were like really great guys. And I think that because up until then I had school friends, but I didn't go and do things with them after school so much. But with these friends, I think just because they were all just really good people, it was something I really felt like God was guiding me to them. And yeah, so I was able to kind of like interact with them more and kind of feel more comfortable at school. And another thing too was I think some of the extracurricular activities I was involved in. I was involved in like a debate club, and then also during my senior year I joined something called mock trial, which is basically you have a trial with judges and lawyers and everything, but it's a mock trial and it's with students you can compete against other schools. And so this kind of combination of events kind of helped me to, instead of being this very introverted person, to become much more extroverted. And I kind of became, instead of, just kind of like not really talking to people and avoiding them, instead I became almost like a social butterfly. And like one realization I had was that during my freshman year I didn't really have so many friends, and I would walk around and I always wish people would say hi to me. And it sounds, kind of dumb maybe or kind of simple, but I just realized that, everybody kind of wants that. When you say hi to somebody, that makes people happy. And I realized, if that makes me happy, then by saying hi to other people, it would make them happy.
Yes.
And it's almost, in high school at least, for me it became kind of the key to making friends. Is just saying hi to people and remembering the name. One of my friends actually tried to like train me, because there's a big difference between just saying like hey or being like hi Bret. When you're excited to see somebody, then it makes them feel very like appreciated, and then then people open up much more easily to you, and then it makes things it makes it a lot easier for you to connect. And so during my senior year, I became really, really close to a lot of people in the span of just a couple months even. And whereas, in ninth grade, I had almost no friends. And even my parents could see this change, because I went from, spending every day after school doing homework, watching TV, and, playing computer games or something, to now all of a sudden I was going out every day after school and to hang out with my friends. And so that's kind of like what a transformation was for me.
Yeah, that's great. What do you believe is meant by the phrase, your true self?
I feel that each person within themselves, they have their own individual, unique, special character. And being your true self is being that person that's inside of you and being who you are regardless of what other people are or what other people think. And like an integral part of that is being honest with yourself. So your true self is that person that isn't defined by, you know, the things around you. Your true self, it's that self inside of you that you're comfortable with, and that you should be happy with, and it's something that doesn't change, that isn't affected by the things around you.
Okay, good. What is one of the biggest obstacles that comes to mind that makes it from difficult to impossible for young people growing up in America to find the freedom to be their true self?
So I'd say one of the biggest obstacles, especially for young people, is the media. Because, you know, as kids are growing up, this is when they're learning about the world, when they're experiencing new things. And so they're very affected by the kind of input they receive, especially from their peers and from those that they see as their role models, you know, those that are older than them. And so as kids look up to, like, their teenagers, or teenagers look up to adults, or at least they look into the media that's around them, what do they see, you know? The media is centered on, you know, what sells, you know, what looks good, what tastes good, what feels good. And so kids see this, and so they think that by following these standards that the media sets, that's what they're supposed to do. This is the kind of person they're supposed to be, instead of realizing that their true self is something that comes from within themselves, and that they have to kind of, like, develop from within themselves, rather than this fake persona that they think they're supposed to create based on all these, like, images from the media. So one of the typical examples with girls is, you know, girls see all these beautiful women in magazines that they like to look at, and so they think that this is the kind of person they're supposed to be, because this is the kind of person that everybody else likes, that everybody wants to look at. But actually, these models, you know, they have to starve themselves, and there's actually, like, a thing going on right now about how a lot of models are having real health problems. And I also saw this. There's this video on YouTube from this True Beauty campaign by Dove about how they took this woman, she was a model, and all the things they did to transform her from her real face to the face they put up on a billboard. You know, they go through hours of makeup and hair and lighting, and not just that, then they use Photoshop to change her neckline and her curves and everything, you know, so it's not even a real person. But this is, you know, this fake person is what these girls are trying to be. But that's really not what is important. What you look like isn't what's important, it's who you are that's important. And yeah, so that's really what being your true self is about.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. What do you think are the biggest fears young people have, which can often lead them to pretend that they're something which they're really not?
The fear of rejection of their true self, of who they really are. Because, you know, that's something that's deep down inside, that's the essence of their being, is this true self. And rejection is, you know, one of the worst feelings in the world.
Yes,
and
it's painful.
Right, it's very painful. And so this fear of rejection of their existence, almost, you know?
Yeah.
And so instead of being who they are and having to, you know, face that possibility of rejection, they try to be who they are not, but what they see as what people like. So they try, instead of being who they are, they define themselves based on what other people like, so that they don't have to face rejection. They put up this front, this wall, this image, this mask that hides their inner being, so that if this mask is rejected, you know, that's not who they really are.
So there's no pain involved in that.
There's no pain involved.
Yeah.
But that's really, that's in the end, it's only going to hurt them.
Tell us more about that.
The essence of you, that's your true self. But if that is not who you are, who you're trying to be, but instead you're trying to be the cool guy or the hip guy, or you're trying to be the pretty girl, you know, you're trying to be a jock, and you have all these like these types of people that, at least for, you know, in high school and college, that are seen as cool. And you know, you want to get like the latest clothes, and you want all the girls or all the guys to like you, and so you have this image that is what everybody likes, is what looks good, is what tastes good, is what feels good, and the image that's created by the media. But by trying to be that kind of person, that's not who you really are. So you're always trying to pursue this idea that's fake, instead of being true to yourself. And because of that, you're never really going to truly be happy. Because if you're denying your essence, if you're denying your soul,
or hiding that,
yeah, if you're hiding that, then you're not going to ever be happy with yourself. It's almost as if here you are, you're scared of being of your true self being rejected by others, and so instead you just reject your true self on your own, so you can try to hide it from the pain of showing it to other people. But in the end, you're only causing yourself more pain, because if you're rejecting yourself, then that's even worse than, you know, having everybody else reject you.
well, because no one can ever really discover who you are,
Right.
because you're not really out there
Right.
in the first place.
Right. And because that's really where you're going to find happiness, is by showing people who you really are, and by seeing the people actually appreciate who you really are,
Yeah.
and at the same time appreciating who other people really are.
And there is a risk involved, because sometimes you will be rejected,
Right.
and sometimes that is painful.
Right.
But you're saying that it's worth that risk, and it's worth those painful moments.
It's worth those painful moments, and you'll realize that, yeah, those moments might come, but the people that don't accept you as your true self are people who themselves are struggling with the very same idea, are people who themselves can't accept who they really are. So if you can see that, you can see past their judgment of you, then you can see that it's all fake, and it really they just want to be happy too. And so you should even try to help them to come in touch with who they really are, what their true self is.
Yeah. Okay, good. How can people get in touch with their true self and begin to reveal that? In other words, live that, be that.
Well, the first thing that you need is an awareness that you aren't being your true self, that you aren't being who you really are. Because without awareness, you know, you have no starting point.
Okay.
So you need to have that starting point of awareness, whether it's through something that somebody else tells you or something you hear. You need to understand how much of who you are is being defined by the media, by the world around you.
Popular culture.
By popular culture, right. So, you know, so the things that are influencing are, you know, magazines, TV, movies, news, all these things. So one thing you might try, you know, change the movies that you're watching, change the music that you listen to, change the magazines that you're reading, and instead of picking all these things that are popular and sexy and hip, try reading things that are more about self-help. Try reading things that are inspirational. Try watching inspirational movies. Try listening to classical music instead of, you know, just like whatever's popular on the radio. And see if you're able to come to realization of the difference between who you are when you're listening to all these things and letting these things define you, rather than who you are when you're just on your own.
Okay, good. And what's the role of spirituality or religion in finding your true self?
Well, for me, one thing is I feel that God is, you know, our parent, and He's a person. He's a being that created us. So our true self comes from Him. If you are part of religion, or you find a religion to follow, and it's something that you feel that you can connect to, that your spirit can connect to, then that's something, when you follow those practices, I feel that's something that can really help you to understand who you really are. Because who you really are is connected to, your spirit, your soul. And that's really what part of what religion is all about, is connecting to that spirit and, finding, the meaning of life and all these different things. And so whether you're part of a more Western religion and you believe in God and living for the sake of others, or if you're part of an Eastern religion and it's more centered on meditation, but either way helps you in that direction of finding your true self, because they help you to see the difference between the media and what they decide and who you really are and what really makes you what you're made of.
Do you think most people are consciously aware to what extent their lives are dominated by the need to look good or be cool?
I think that everyone, to some degree, is aware that there are some aspects of their life that are defined by the media or by society. But at the same time, I think that most people do not realize to what extent their life is, or the things about their life is determined by society and the media. And I feel that it's kind of like there's this, it's rooted into them. It's like inside of them there's their true self, and then wrapped around it is this thick root. And they can't see that. They can only see like the ends of it. So yeah, I feel that most people know that some aspects of their life are determined or defined by society, but maybe the kind of clothes they wear, or the kind of shoes they wear, the cars they drive, what looks good. I'm sure that a lot of people realize that these things are defined by society. But I think what most people do not realize is that it's more than that. If these little things are being determined, then it's even more than that. It's inside of them. They don't realize that society is also defining who they are as a person. That society is, because they're listening to what the values of society are. And the values of society, are what makes money. Like I said before, what looks good, feels good, tastes good kind of thing. So that's where people are placing their value rather than valuing themselves for who they are. So I think as people go about their day,
yeah,
their day-to-day life, and you kind of don't really think about what defines you or where your values are, all these kinds of things. But, at the end of the day, you come back from work, you might be tired or something, but, as nighttime comes, nighttime is kind of more of a time of, I feel, of reflecting and thinking, and I think during that time people realize that if they're letting society define who they are, then they're not really happy with themselves. And I think unless you realize that that's because you're letting society define who you are, then what you're going to do is you're going to try to go and raise your value according to society standards by going and buying the better car or the better clothes. But really that's just making the problem worse, because it's going in the opposite direction. The focus isn't on what you own, the focus is on who you are. And yeah, so...
Well, what are some of the qualities that define who people are in their true self? I mean, how can we better understand what that's about? And we understand the not true stuff, the external things, the material things that the media emphasizes. But what are some of the qualities that determine who we really are?
Everybody wants to be happy.
Yes.
And everybody wants to feel joy. And all these people who are letting society define their values, they're experiencing happiness, but a very temporary happiness. And what they're looking for is that real joy that you experience by being who you really are. The qualities of your true character are, they're not really something that you can necessarily list off, but they're going to be qualities that when you look at yourself and you're being honest with yourself, you know that this is who you are. These are the things that really make you happy. These are the things that you really enjoy. And when you let other people know that, and you let other people see that, and they see you for who you really are, and they're able to appreciate you, then that's when you really feel alive, when you really feel like you're you, like you're a person. Growing up, I was a very kind of closed-minded person, more or less, pretty conservative. But as I talked about earlier, I had this defining moment where I became more outgoing during my last year of high school. And during that year, there was this commercial for Jack in the Box, the Meaty Cheesy Boys. I don't know if anybody remembers it, but I had this kind of, I thought it was really funny, and so I was kind of into it. And I was in this club called Keelan's, it was a service club, and there was an end of the year banquet, and one of my friends said it would be funny if we kind of did a spoof on that. The Meaty Cheesy Boys is a spoof on the boy bands kind of thing, so if we did something like that as well. And so me and 3 other of my friends, we decided to go ahead and try it out, and we ended up copying a stage performance from one of the boy bands, and instead of just making fun of it, we kind of took it seriously. We really got into it, and we practiced a lot for it, and it was a lot of fun. And I realized that I actually really enjoy dancing. When I came to college, I took a swing dancing class, and that became the highlight of my week. I did this fundraiser called Dance Marathon where we raised money for AIDS research, and you dance for 26 hours, and all these different things. And so, I'm growing up my whole life as this kind of like very conservative person. All of a sudden, I realized that I love dancing, which is, especially being a boy and during high school and stuff, isn't something that you can so easily admit to other guys. It's not like, oh, I like dancing. It's not like football. It's not something that most guys necessarily like. And so in telling people that I like dancing, it's something that I really that I feel is a part of who I am. And so here I'm kind of putting myself on the line. But it's because I feel that I'm confident because it's part of who I am. And I want to be open about it so that people know who I am. And I find that initially it sounds kind of funny, but people respect me for it because I am comfortable with showing who I really am. It is scary to show people who you really are because you have to face that fear of rejection. And it's okay to be scared of that, but that's why you need to have a lot of courage to overcome that fear. Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in this cycle of not being happy with who you are and trying to find it in what society values, which is, all fake and temporary. But if you're able to find that courage to be yourself, to show people who you really are, and initially, you might have to face some rejection. You might have to face some kind of judgment or something. But in the end, people will respect you for being yourself.
And based on your own experience, what are some of the biggest benefits of giving yourself permission to be your true self?
Well, the main benefit I'm going to go back to is happiness. If you live your whole life never really being your true self, never really being who you are, then when you come towards the end of it, you're going to look back and you're going to feel a lot of regret because you never allowed yourself to be who you really are. your entire life is a sham almost. And when you pass on to the next life, this is the person that you've been, and you're going to go into this next life as that same person, which isn't who you really are. And so you're condemning yourself to misery rather than letting yourself be free and happy. And another thing that you're going to realize is, because you weren't your true self, you never let other people get to know, really get to know you. So all of these people that are your friends, they don't know who you really are. So you're going to feel very lonely because nobody knows who you really are on the inside. And so if you live your whole life this way, you're going to come to the end of your life and be lonely and miserable, where instead, if you allow yourself to really be who you are, you can be happy. And yeah, that's the main benefit. If you're a person that lives your life behind this mask, and you go and get married and you have kids, what kind of an example, will you be for your children? If you've been living your life that way, you probably haven't been entirely happy. And as a parent, you probably don't want your kids to be like that either. But if you are still hiding behind that mask, and you are still letting your values be decided by society, by these more like external things, then that's where your kids are going to place their value as well. So as they're growing up, they're going to place their value on looking good and being cool, and it's going to, that's the cycle that's going on in the world right now.
You're saying, yes.
And I feel like the world isn't the place that it should be. By having people change to place their values based on who they really are rather than what sells, then that's how you can change society.
Exactly.
And escape this vicious cycle and instead make it a uplifting cycle.
An uplifting cycle.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, Shawn McCarthy, on that note, I want to thank you so much for being our guest in a defining moment. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your insights with us.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for coming. You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. You can find us on the internet at www.definingmoment.tv. Thanks for watching and have a great day.